when I started this channel, I want to bring authentic conversations to the forefront. I want to be able to allow people to come on to share their stories authentically, and stories that affect the home and affect the family. So it's exactly what we're going to do today. I have my friend Stacy, who's joining me to have an amazing conversation about parental alienation. Stacy, how's it going for you?
Everything's good. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful, doing wonderful. Now, me and Stacey go way back. We've been on these YouTube streets and the social media streets for a while, and
Yep.
we've been just helping each other and supporting each other for a while. And I appreciate her and her husband, and it's just been a great connection. And you've recently commented on one of my posts on TikTok there, talking about parental alienation. You shared your story with me a little bit, and I thought it'd be great, and we thought it'd be great to have you on and discuss it. So, Stacey, what I want to do is just open up the floor just a little bit. Uh, you shared, like I said, your story with me. I just want you to share it with the people, and we'll just take it from there. How's that sound?
All right.
All
Sounds
right,
good.
floor is yours.
Okay. Um, so the discussion was about parental alienation when I came across your video, and it struck me because I could definitely relate to it. Um, my story is more less my mother and father, and I don't even remember them being together. I think they broke up when my mom was pregnant with me. But long story short, he wasn't around a lot during my childhood. And my mom, when I would ask her, how come he's not around, I would usually get a sarcastic answer like, well, out of sight, out of mind. He's not thinking about you unless you're around. Um, we would go to visit him. He lived in another city. We would go and visit him. And, my family there, they would be excited to see me, and he would. And it just, what my mom was saying didn't always line up, I felt. But then I didn't hear from him. So it was like, well, what she's saying has to be kind of true. Um, it wasn't until I got older where I started questioning certain things. Um, and when I turned 18, I wanted to get to know my father. My mom, she would say little things here and there, but it was more or less, well, you're grown now. So me and my dad, we tried to get to know each other the best that we could, but it was always one of those things where we would have a conversation, but it sounds like I was talking to maybe a neighbor. Like it never got
Yeah,
to where I felt comfortable.
yeah.
So, um, but throughout the years, I would have surgeries like on my ankle, and I would call my dad. There was one incident where I did have ankle surgery, and my dad came, and my mom was in the waiting room. She was irritated that he was there, but she didn't make a big fuss out of it. It wasn't until I was in my 30s and I was having my first child, and I called my dad and said, I'm going to have your grandbaby. He comes to my city. And the minute he came into the room, everything changed. The energy, my mom saying little mean, sarcastic things to him, starting little uh, arguments and saying, you're acting like you've been here all along, like you deserve to be here. And I'm thinking to myself, maybe that's so, but right now it's not the time. I just want my parents here. I'm fortunate enough to be in my mid 30s and have two parents that's alive at this point. And, I just wanted to have a baby, but my mom didn't like that. She, took that personally, and she stopped speaking to me for quite some time after my daughter was born. And it was because I wanted my father involved.
Mm.
So,
Man.
um, I think after I had my daughter, my dad, he actually asked me, do you want me to kind of not come around for a little while so your mom won't be upset? And I didn't even think of that as an option, because I felt like, well, why should I have to pick? Like, I just had a baby. Yeah, I didn't even choose you to be my father. Like, this was all my mom's choosing, and I'm getting the brunt of it for just existing and wanting you to be part of my life because this is who she chose to be my father. And so I think the stress of all of that, right after having a baby, I noticed that there were like spots coming out here, and it's normal for women to lose hair after having a baby, but this spot just continued to like recede back further and further. So one day I just took the clippers because the doctor told me it was just postpartum hair loss. So I was like, well, it's coming out anyway. It'll grow back. I took the clippers off. I took the clippers out and I cut my hair. And that was the last time I saw it. That was 7 years ago. I went to the doctor and they said that I had low iron. But the main question was, were you stressed out? And I thought that was a weird question because I'm like, well, yeah, everybody's a little stressed, but they don't lose their hair. But apparently, when you are very stressed out, you can kick your system into, what do they say, your autoimmune.
Yeah.
It can trigger your immune system. And whatever it is in my genetic makeup, stress or like, deep stress was me trying to navigate having a new baby with the fact that I don't have my mom to guide me there, or me having the stress of hearing people saying you have to keep an eye on the baby, you want to make sure, because I'm trying to prevent SIDS. There's like a lot of things going through my mind when I'm having postpartum depression, and on top of it I'm like, my mom is mad at me, did I do something wrong? And I really think that kind of helped kick my stress up a lot.
Yeah. I want to thank you first off for sharing that. And I want to mention, how tough that must have been to experience, and how tough it may even to relive it and share it at the moment. And I just want to appreciate your courage, first off to share that. Do you mind if I ask a couple follow-up
Yeah.
questions? So the dynamic that you're explaining there regarding how your mom responded to your dad being there, it's like she totally just vanished from always, I guess, always being there and always, uh, being the parent that you can rely upon, to now that the other parent is now available, is totally gone. What was the relationship like, beyond uh, what she said about him? What was you guys' relationship like prior to that moment?
Honestly, the best way I can describe the relationship that me and my mom had, I kind of feel like she was my first bully. I was kind of easy to say things to because I would believe it. I was very gullible. And I think me and my mom were very opposite. In high school, my mom was the skinny, pretty girl that all the men wanted. In high school, I was the fat girl with the hairy face because I had hormone issues. So
Hmm.
I think in some ways, subconsciously, she kind of resented that about me. Like, why are you like this? I had friends that were pretty, and they still are, but my mom would subtly make sure I knew that. Like, oh, they're very pretty. And I'm like, well, I'm not. But so we always kind of had like a shaky relationship. I've been more sensitive. She was just more stern on things. So I guess looking back, it should not have been surprising. It's just she had never went to that extreme to actually stop speaking to me. And so that was new.
Yeah. When you say the term first bully, I'll be honest, the reason I'm doing this type of content now is because I believe that so many of us can relate to that. When I say us, I'm
Yeah.
referring to the black community. I know it's not exclusive to the black community. I'm not saying that at all, but it is a almost like a epidemic that's happened in our community, that people are now starting to speak up and say, "Hey, I love my mother, but she wasn't the best person,
Mhm.
and she didn't treat me the best." Uh, in that line of thinking, what do you think that comes from? That regardless, well, the way it was prior to now, regardless of what mothers did, we were. It seems like people talked about them in such a high regard, and now they're starting to tell the truth of, hey, I love her, but she wasn't the best person. Or do you think that came from that, where we had to speak about them in high regard?
I think it really came from their parents. Like no matter what. I remember when I was little talking to my mom, she says, "Don't roll your eyes." I didn't even know what rolling eyes was because I'm like, I know I wasn't rolling my eyes. I was trying to stay perfectly still. Like you have to be. um, but honestly, I do think it's from their generation, and like everybody knows, it's probably a semblance of slavery passed down to us to have some kind of domination or control. Like, I am the person that pays the bills. You don't ask me anything, um and then also I can show my mom some grace to know that she was a single mom. Even if she was she could have been the one that completely kept my dad away. Now that I am a parent, my husband could not. You can't keep me away from my kids. There's nothing he could say or do to keep me away. So that's where I kind of would side eye my dad, like, well, you know, you knew you had a child too. But I do think about that. My mom was a full-time, she was a full-time worker. She worked overnights, like 5 days a week. She slept a lot. So I didn't see her a lot because she was at work or she was sleeping. So I understand that there was a lot of pressure on a lot of our parents. And I think that because of that, sometimes when you're stressed out, the real you is just not there when you're tired. So that's the grace that I can show her. But I think mental health is very important, and I'm glad that our generation and the generations after us is starting to wake up to that. There's
Yeah.
a lot of things that my mom did and said that I would like to do differently with my children, because I don't want them to experience or feel about me in any kind of way. Like, I feel like my mother doesn't like me, and I've said that to her, and I could tell that kind of bothers her, but I do feel that, I don't ever want my kids to feel that way, not
Yeah.
not for something that I could change within me, but I definitely think that it's a mental health thing in our community that needs to be looked at.
Yeah. You mentioned you don't believe your mother likes you, and you also mentioned previously that your dad could have fought harder, you
Hmm.
know, but yet once your dad was in your life actively, he even took back was willing to take the back seat and say, "Hey, if it means your mother coming back around, do I need to step back?" You know,
Hmm.
so it seems like a complete opposite reaction of how they're choosing to treat you.
Yeah.
When you spoke to your dad and about what happened, what was his side of the story?
That is actually one of the biggest mysteries. It's like they're both hush hush about it. So the only thing that I can gather is they were together. It didn't work out. Um, my mom went on with someone else, and he went on with someone else. I don't know what happened in between. Like, nobody said anything. I'm just like, what? So I'm just like in the middle, just here.
Yeah. So what about that dynamic or the relationship that they had? What about that do you believe your mother was like, I don't want no part of it. I don't want any part of you or my new grandchild if that man is going to be involved.
You saying what might have triggered, would
Right.
have made her control,
Mhm.
honestly, because you can't change the past. And here at that point, I was 33. And it's just like, you're still mad from something that happened in 84. It's just, you know, um, I honestly think it's control. And if everything had gone her way, though, everybody would have been unhappy, but she would have been happy.
Mm. Ooh, I don't know. I felt some energy on that because it seems like that's the case. But
Yeah.
a lot of times with mothers is their happiness is centered around their control. Their
Hmm.
happiness is centered around it being the way they want, and if they can't have it the way they want, they're willing to not be involved at all.
Hmm.
One thing you haven't shared yet, and if you aren't comfortable sharing this, please let me know. But you did tell me before that your father, unfortunately, is no longer with us.
Hmm.
Uh, do you mind going into just how that whole transition took place and how that may have affected you at this point?
Um, well, I could tell you a miraculous story that actually happened out of that. So my son was born. This was back in 2020, and the I had so many plans when I was pregnant with my son. I wanted to have the big baby shower, and I wanted to, take some pictures. But then 2020, so we couldn't do a
Yeah.
lot of that. So all through my pregnancy, my dad would call and check on me, and I would tell him, like, I want to come up and come see you, but everybody was scared of COVID at this point. So he's like, no, you're pregnant, stay home. And so I ended up having my son, and my dad still had not seen my son. Now, my dad was a Jehovah's Witness, so I'm somebody that celebrates holidays. So I'm like, well, we still kind of like we talk to each other, and it's still kind of odd. But I'm like, I want to do something for him because I've never gotten him a Father's Day gift, a birthday gift, because he didn't celebrate, and I couldn't think of any other reasons. But I'm like, I guess let me just make him something. So I made him a cup with my kids on it and my sister's kids on it, and I sent it to him. Well, that prompted him to come visit. He just popped up on me one Sunday. The Sunday that he popped up on me, his stomach was full of fluid, and his face, he just looked like he aged maybe 5 years. I used to work in the medical field. I was a tech, but there's things that I know that I don't know why I didn't say it to him. I didn't think about it. But my dad was that type of person where if he was sick, he would tell you he was sick, but then he would change the subject because he didn't want you to dwell on feeling sorry for him. Like, okay, we're not talking about me anymore. How are you? And he was good at that. So I was like, oh, well, I'm fine, actually. He wanted to keep the focus on, I'm meeting my grandson for the first time. So I'm like, well, maybe he'll be okay. He was telling me, yeah, I have a doctor's appointment in 2 weeks, and I'm going to get these compression socks. And I'm thinking, compression socks with your stomach. But for some reason, I don't know, it was like something was just keeping me from saying more, being concerned. I almost think of maybe that was his time to go. But before he left, I remember a little voice saying, tell him that you love him. I didn't say it because it was just so, like, I did love him, but we didn't talk that way because we were still kind of like neighbors.
Yeah.
But when he left, I kept thinking about that. So I called him when he got home, and then I said, and I felt better for some reason. Like I felt like something released, and I think nothing else of it. And my dad was gone maybe 3 weeks exactly later. He had congestive heart failure. So what I was seeing in his stomach was actually fluid. But I think the miraculous thing was, the first thing he said when he was holding my son was, can you take a picture of us? I'm like, oh, sure. I'm so glad he said that because he was gone 3 weeks later. But I did hear that my mom has apologized, not to me, but things that, she's talked to another family member and said that she does wish she didn't step in between our getting to know each other. But she didn't say it to me. I mean, because you can't do anything about it now. I'm like, I forgive you, but yeah, good timing. Yeah, but yeah, he's been gone since 2020, and I say that I carry that because I'm a spiritual person. I still talk to my dad, but I guess I'm upset more because when it comes to women, like I was talking to you earlier, I've always tried to befriend women. Every time I would hear a woman say, I don't want females around me, I don't want female friends, I'm like, no, we need to unite better than this because me and my mom don't have that unification. I want to unite us. And I kind of feel like in some ways that women almost kept my dad from me because it was like my mom, and then I have an older sister that he actually raised. It wasn't her fault that he raised her and not me, but me and her, we're not that close. We tried. My stepmother, after my dad died, she didn't even like let me know if there's anything I could have of his. So it's just like, why is there always a woman blocking me? And I'm still trying to get along with y'all. But those are just some things I thought about after too, in parallels with my mom.
Let's go.